Good morning. It's 9:11. I'm Keith Hittner Sr. here in the studio with Kelvin Kaemingk. Keith Hittner Jr. is off fishing in Wisconsin someplace. So,
really?
Yep. I hope he has a good time and good weather and good fishing out there. You can reach Kelvin directly at 651-231-2500, 651-231-2500. RealEstateChalkTalk.com is where you want to go to find our vendor contact information. They'll help you fix up your home and get it ready for sale. And 612-627-8000, of course, is the number to call if you need our help. Remember, we can't help you if you don't call, so call 612-62000 today. August is over, hard to believe, but no need for your summer to end. Get your Rakshak BBQ delivered right to your door so you don't miss a minute of your family and friend time. Just go to the website, RakshakBBQ.com, and click on the delivery link at the top of the page. Choose the location that's close to you and order your barbecue feast. If you're on your way home and want to pick it up, no waiting in line, easy peasy. Just click on the pickup link and order and pay online. The crew will have your feast ready to pick up for when you get there. You can just grab it, walk out the door, and head home. Rakshak BBQ is America's food, and it is the right thing to do. Coming up, we're going to have Dave Kosimba with Junk Happens. We've had Dave on the show quite a few times, and it's always a fun and interesting conversation. Talk about all of our junk. It was interesting because we were watching. I don't know what it was. Sheila and I were sitting, killing time before you go to bed. You know how it is.
Holding hands.
Yeah, you need just that little downtime a little bit before you can go flop down. And we were watching Hoarders.
Really?
You ever watch Hoarders?
I have. It's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. And the show is addicting because we sat there and we wound up watching like 3 of them in a row.
No way.
Yeah. And she's getting up. She's I gotta go to bed. I gotta go to bed because I gotta get up in the morning. I gotta go to bed. And then they come up with another one coming on. And then she's settled back down in the chair and she's watching.
What? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It'll be interesting to talk to Dave about just seeing, if they've ever experienced that, gone through that. Piece here in Minnesota. So
yeah, and what do you do with all this stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay, so it's 9/11 today, Kelvin.
Yep.
Was it 15 years?
15 years.
15 years. Do you remember 15 years ago? I have a hard time remembering last week, but could you remember 15 years ago what you were doing when that happened and kind of what your thoughts were going through?
I can remember very clearly because I was in North Carolina meeting with Lending Tree, which was the vendor that we worked with initially. When we met, and so I was in a meeting with them looking at bringing lending. The whole Lending Tree concept at the time was brand new, and bringing that to Minnesota on the real estate side and on the mortgage side. So we were in a meeting, came out of the meeting, and everybody was standing around all the TVs that were there, and they have a real open concept in their office, watching all the TVs. And so we watched it for a little bit. I wasn't sure, you have no idea at the time what's really happening.
Right.
And so we ended up going, and I was supposed to fly out that day, and I couldn't fly out because they grounded all the planes. So the next morning, I thought, well, maybe tomorrow morning I'll be able to go. And they, they shut down all air travel. So there was 6 cars left at the airport, and I rented a car and drove straight through home.
Lucky you got that car.
No kidding. So that's where I was, and you kind of think back right now, and I think you're pretty shocked that it could be pulled off. I guess my initial thoughts were that this could be pulled off in the United States was pretty shocking to me. And then, but I did think that Bush united the country, and I think the country got more united during that period of time. And I think 15 years later, seems like we've kind of forgotten that unity and that just that sense of country.
Well, I think that there's no question about that. When you say, I remember when I was at
where were you?
I was in the office, working, and I like I typically do. I have multiple screens, that are running all the time, and then I always have the TVs on too, and the monitors on. I'm watching the news, and I just monitor. Right, it's just kind of background noise on there, and if something comes up, I'll pay attention to it, and then it came on that a plane had crashed into, I think it was Building 1. And I thought at first it was like, well, that can't be.
Right.
How
like it was an accident, right? Like it wasn't intentional.
That can't be. And then, of course, it became obvious, and I was actually watching when the second one came in.
Really?
And it was unbelievable. It's like, what the heck is going on? And then you hear that they hit the Pentagon, and one goes down in Pennsylvania, and it's like, holy cow. Same thing, just like, what is going on? I agree with you. Of course, the media hated Bush, and so they were following protocol, and he got an Air Force One, and he was in the air, and that plane wasn't coming down until they knew what was going on, right?
Yeah.
And that was protocol, but it's like, well, we don't care what protocol is because it's Bush. Then he should be on all the should-bes, all the talking heads were saying all what should have done and what should have happened and all that. And if you've watched any interviews of Bush and what was going through his mind at that time, I mean, that's got to be...
It's pretty fascinating.
It is very, very fascinating. And it's interesting to me how the planning of how the country goes through, or the military, or the Secret Service, whoever it is, how they have these plans in place in case of, fill in the blank. And it's like every contingency that anyone can possibly think of, they must just sit around the table. I'm sure they do. Sit around the table and say, well, what if this happens? What are we going to do? Yeah. Okay, that's what we'll do. We'll document that. That becomes what we're going to do. Well, what if he's here? Then what do we do? What if he's at the White House? What do we do? You know what I mean? All that, all those kind of layers that go down through all of government, really.
And that there's sites all over the country that can literally turn into a command center at a drop of a hat, as happened during that period of time.
So I find that that's interesting. I agree with you. Imagine, or consider, I guess, that 15 years later, the kids that were there are 5 years old, 6 or 10 years old even, really have no recollection, really, or understand. They may remember that it happened, but they don't clearly understand the impact other than what the school system has taught them, or tried to prevent them from learning better. So now they're 25 years old. How real is it to them? That event, the shock of that event.
It's always fascinating because Colin is 12, so he wasn't even alive during it, and it captures your attention. Everybody's sitting around just watching. Kyle was 2 at the time, and my daughter was she was 5 at the time, 6 at the time. So they are small, and but so it's fascinating now for them to rewatch that and go, wow, this really happened.
Well, one thing this week there was a show on, and they were people were talking about it, and they're talking about this whole terrorist war that's going on right now, and they consider that all of that activity is happening in Europe, in the Middle East and those areas, and really very little impact on our day-to-day lives. I mean, we get up in the morning, we hear about it a little bit on the news. We go to work, we go out to eat at night. I mean, you drive in, the restaurants are full. Our restaurants are busy all the time. There's lines. I mean, people are just living their lives. It really doesn't have an impact at all on how we live our life. So it's very difficult then to get the buy-in like we had during World War II, or even Korea, where there was rationing of aluminum, there was rationing of milk, there was, people were being careful. It was the war effort. That's all, because the country had to pitch in as a country, as civilians, to support the war effort. Now it's just like, it's pretty sterile, which is dangerous. Wonder how could we get through World War II in 4 years, and this has been going on now for 15 years. Well, it's because it's so sterile.
Sterile, and I don't think there's a commitment to win.
Well, I don't think
because there's not a definition of what winning is, even, right?
But if the ongoing war effort was a little more painful, there'd be a little more pressure and urgency from the citizenry to get it won and get it over with. I think there's a lot of money being made on the war, one way or the other. Either through the defense, spending and all that stuff, jobs creation. People, let's face it, that's jobs creation. Let's open up some more Navy bases and Army bases and build some more missiles and do all this kind of stuff because it's creating jobs. And
real quick, because we're in our last minute, Trump and Clinton had their foreign policy. Give me a quick 30 seconds.
Clinton said basically nothing. Very general stuff, very broad. Trump is getting specific. I'm excited to hear what he has in the weeks coming ahead. The polls are tightening. It's doing what I predicted that he would be doing. If you're looking for information about selling or purchasing your home, your one-stop website is realestatejocktalk.com. Realestatejocktalk.com is where you can find all the resources we've been talking about over the last 8 years, and it's all in one place. Give us a call, 612-627-8000. We'll be right back.